Hello, in England doing VAT. So the situation with VAT in England and Malta is similar. There's something called margin scheme. In England it's called the special scheme, and it means that a antiques dealer selling antiques can pay VAT on the margin, on the profit. And now when it comes to special scheme and margin scheme, it's allowed for people like estate agents and car dealers, second-hand car dealers and antiques dealers, because if you were selling a house and each time it was sold it had to have VAT on the whole amount, it would obviously be ridiculous. So there is the margin scheme where the estate agent can charge the VAT on the profit, and the same as I say applies to second-hand car dealers and antiques dealers. Now in England the rule on antiques was if the item had to be 100 years old for the government to allow the special scheme to apply, and that is more or less still the same. In Malta the ruling is slightly less tight. It's second-hand goods. So in Malta we have the margin scheme on the profit. So we sell an antique and we pay the VAT on the profit, not on the whole value, as I say, like an auctioneer does, or like a estate agent does, or like a second-hand car dealer does. So it's nothing new, it's just the way it's always been done. So some of the strange things about special scheme are that if I make €1,000 on a picture, the VAT comes within €1,000. It's not a surcharge on top of the €1,000, and the VAT within €1,000 at 18% is not €180 like the VAT would be if it was added to 1,000%. 18.5% VAT on 1,000 is 180, but it is not as much as that if you take it within 1,000. So you've got to watch. I have to watch what I'm doing. It's very easy to make mistakes. In England, the VAT is 20%. The other thing about special scheme is the idea is you can't load, because the tax is based on profit. The idea is that the merchant can't load items and add it to the cost to make the profit look like it's less. So there are very strict rules. And if you buy at an auction house, for example, if I buy at an auction house an item and sell it to someone down the line, or I sell it in an auction later on, you have to use the hammer price as the basis point. You can't add the collection charges, buyer's premium, repairs, reframing. You have to use the hammer price at the cost price when it comes to working out the margin. And when you're selling, you can't use the net receipts of an auction sale as what you've got for it at the selling price. You have to use the hammer price. The auctioneer will deduct their commission. So you can't just take a cheque from an auctioneer and say that's what he sold it for. You have to say what he sold it for is the receipt plus the deducted selling commission if you're doing it properly. And that's the same in England, and it's the same in Malta. And you have to be able to identify each item if you are using the special scheme or the margin scheme. It's the same thing. If you're using standard rate VAT, you can have a pool of stock, and you don't have to separate out each item when you buy it or sell it. You can just chuck all the invoices in a pile and chuck all the sales invoices in a pile. But if you're using special scheme, this margin scheme, you have to be able to track each item from cost to selling individually so that the margin is correct. You can't guess it, and you can't use a pool at the end of the year. You can't use net columns because you can't deduct loss-making items off the profit you make. You have to pay VAT on things you make a profit on, and you can't deduct losses on other items to offset that VAT. So it's very helpful, obviously, that there is the margin scheme for antiques dealers and second-hand goods dealers and auctioneers and car dealers and estate agents. It's very handy, and it means that the business is viable. I don't know what they do in America, I don't know what they do in France. I suspect they have similar things, or I'm sure they have similar things. But the problem is for me, I have a company in England, which is one set of accounts. I have another business in Malta, which is another set of accounts. And the VAT accounts are different to the income tax accounts because they're run in a certain different way and they have different periods. So you might have a year end at the end of December, but the VAT might go from October to end of January. So it's a hell of a mess and it's awful. And it's all done online, so you have to be on the ball all the time and submit on time. And the other problem with Malta for me is if I'm sending things to Malta, I have to use exchange rates and I have to use I have to account for the import charges. So an item going to Malta from England or France, or not from France, from England, will have a duty because it's outside the EU, and there is an inspection fee usually, which is a form of duty. It's a valuation fee. There is customs duty, which is a VAT, which will be 5% often, or 18% sometimes, and these VAT rates are applied to the foreign currency at a set exchange rate generated by the government, and there is a customs administration fee. So there's valuation fee sometimes, customs fee always, customs rates always at different amounts. There is shipping, which has to be accounted for in Malta, because sometimes the Maltese charge the VAT on the goods only. Sometimes they charge it on the goods and the premium. Sometimes they charge it on the goods and the premium and the shipping costs. Sometimes they forget to do it the right way around. And depending on which customs officer is there on the day, we're finding from the paperwork there are 4 or 5 different ways of us getting these charges generated. So we're paying what we're told to pay, but we have to account for these in the VAT in a different way. So sometimes in the special scheme in Malta, the import duty applies to the item plus the premium. Sometimes it applies to the item only, the hammer. So when it comes to the special scheme, there are different rules, because if the item is imported into Malta and duty is applied to all the charges, the item notionally is worth what all of the costs add up to together, whereas on other occasions the item cost notionally the hammer price subject to the exchange rate. So it's very, very complicated, and I can only do it in small doses, but it's very nice when you finish it, because you can forget about it and go back to the antiques dealing. Paperwork takes a lot of time and it's really tiring, and problem is you forget what you paid for things, and you forget where you bought things, and you have to have a piece of paper to relate to every single aspect. You have to have, for one item, you have to have the cost invoice, the shipping invoice, the duty payment, the valuation. So you can see it's a hell of a paper chase, and these items of paper don't come at the same time. They come as the item moves into Malta towards the buyer at the end. There's another piece of paper. So there's a lot of paperwork involved. It's a very nice feeling to have it all done and be up to date. And I estimate I spend as much time doing the paperwork as doing the dealing. It's a great shame it wasn't like that many years ago. It was a lot easier, but nowadays it's become really complicated. So we've talked about the margin scheme, VAT on the margin, or VAT within the margin to be more precise, because the VAT within the margin isn't charged to the customer, it's paid by the vendor really. It's a different sort of way around. We've talked about the exchange rates, we've talked about the duty and the vagaries of how it enters Malta and how items are taxed. This is caused by Brexit to a degree, though I voted for Brexit. So I can't see it getting any easier. It's just time consuming in order to be compliant. But as I say, once it's done, it's a great feeling. Thank you. Bye bye.